Hello, and welcome to the Goddess Way Summit, where we're learning how to tap into our feminine powers to create a life of wealth, beauty, and pleasure. And today I have the great pleasure of being with Stasha, and she is the period coach. Her life vision is to end the taboo of menstruation. She teaches women and entrepreneurs how to harness the power of their cycle. Stasha, I think you're doing such amazing work, and I'm so excited to have you with us.
Thank you for having me. This is such a fun summit. I am so stoked to listen to everybody.
Awesome. Cool. So before we dive in, I would like to say a prayer, help us ground the energy. So here we go. Need to call in God, Goddess presence. Please be with us on this call. Please open the lines of communication. Please fill this call with brilliant light, with healing of the highest order, with powerful love, with deepening and awakening, with fun, sensuality, joy, and a reconnection with our own flow as women. This or something even better for the highest good of all concerned.
Oh, that felt good. I like that.
Oh, good. So, Stasha, you're a big advocate for women getting to know their periods and charting their period. So why is charting so important for women, especially women doing really big things?
Yeah. Oh, man. It is the basic fundamental. And I often say that one of the greatest coups the patriarchy did was separating women from their cycles. And I like to remind women that the burning times, the witch hunts, took over 200 years, and 9 million women were estimated to be murdered.
Wow.
Not just like murdered, but like ripped from their families, tortured horribly. And it took that long and that many women to really actually separate us from our cycles so deeply and so profoundly. So I see charting not only as the foundation for really getting back into your body and seeing how you can live your life really in flow and in alignment, but also as honoring those women that fought so hard to keep us connected and lost their lives in the process, and honoring the women that are coming next and giving them that gift of reconnecting and seeing the importance of it. So
wow,
I really feel like charting is powerful. Yeah, it's big. It's the first gateway in my work, in my teaching. The very first thing that happens, it's kind of like no matter what you do with me, the first thing I'm going to do is be like, you need to chart.
Right.
And here it is.
Yeah. Make sense with the chart.
Yes, and you guys are getting my free gift, which is a charting mandala, and I insist that there always be a free charting mandala available because I do think it's just that important. And if it's literally the only thing you do, my work here is done.
Yeah. I'm so excited for it because I've been yearning to color and play more, and like that's all related to our flow and our creativity. And then it's also so important just to have the data as well.
It is. And you look back in time and you see, oh man, every year, like personally, every year in the like winter, spring transition, my menstruation moves from the full moon to the dark moon. Every time. It just happens. I see in my entrepreneurs all the time, their cycles will shift. They'll move over to being with the full moon or being with the new moon, depending on what their businesses are doing. If their businesses are going on a big push, or if they're taking a little like, okay, we just had a big push, now we can just kick back and relax for a minute. So I see this all of the time, how women's cycles move. And if you collect the data and you see what happens, you start to see where your patterns are. And even women with irregular cycles, we see patterns emerging that they never would have seen without charting. And I think most women consider themselves irregular. We have this idea that 28 days is what it's supposed to be. It's not. That's just the mean. It's just the average. So if you take every woman and they kind of settle in at that 28 days, the average. But that's not every woman. That's just the numerical average.
Right.
There's a lot of space for room and movement, and there should be. And like you said, being a creative woman, you're going to change your mind. Things are going to change. Things are going to
Yeah.
happen. Your life is going to change. And you think your cycle is any different than that? Like,
That's
it's
so
a flowing
true.
woman too.
Right. It doesn't have to be like rigid, like,
Right.
every, 28
Right.
days.
And that's really the beauty of charting, is that you can see all of that, but you can also see how things affect each other on the chart. So the chart that I created along with an illustrator, because I just sent her the data and my wishes and everything about it, and then actually several of them told me that it was impossible. She told me that she could do it, and then told me later that she thought I was completely nuts and it was totally impossible, but she didn't want to say no. So
Well,
she
that's the
figured it
power
out.
of going for it, right?
I know. And now we have 3 books that we sell a year for different, if you're in menopause or perimenopause or regular on birth control or a teenager. And then there's a business edition, which is the one that I use, which has the business
Very
charting in it as
cool.
well. But it's the same chart for everybody. And we have all of these different things. Our moon, so there's little moons on there. So what is the actual phase of the moon? What's your energy? What are your symptoms? How's your self-care? What's your mood, your libido, your energy? What are you eating? And then, of course, what is the nitty-gritty science that you really do need to do is, what's your cervical fluid? What's your basal body temperature? What's your digestion? Because it's so important to your hormonal balance.
Wow. That's so comprehensive. It
It
just like
is.
wrapped everything all in a beautiful
And it only
picture.
takes 2 minutes a day.
Yeah.
Just kind of sit down and go, and you're done. And that's it. But then you look back and you're like, oh my God, I have all this amazing data in front of me. And I can't tell you how often I'm like, well, the last couple of months, my cycle has been a 20 to 22 day cycle. I must be switching moons.
Yeah.
I can do that because I can see it.
And you have spoken, the moon is in the drawing, and you reference the moon. So why is connecting with the moon and your menstruation important for women?
I have a couple of theories on this, and one of them, I think this one is what I'm turning into my next ebook.
Cool. Oh, we got the preview. Yeah.
So I have a theory that menstruating women are, let's say, the training wheels of living cyclically and in harmony with the celestial bodies as well as the earthly body. So I think of our menstrual cycle as our training wheels. Traditionally, back in the day, pre-electricity, pre-burning of all of the women time, we had this, we did menstruate with the moon, and women would sleep outside and they would all menstruate together the same, and they would sleep in the moonlight. And if someone was getting off cycle or something was happening, the women would all come together. Oftentimes you would hear that a few women in the village would be opposites, and they were often the wise women, the women that bled with the full moon. Not wise women in the menopause shape, but in like the herbalist or the one who took care of all of the other women while they were menstruating person. But then in turn, the whole village took care of them. So, and PMS is not a thing. It's not a phase of your menstrual cycle. It's just a symptom of hormonal imbalance. So keep in mind that PMS probably didn't even exist
Can you imagine a time like when there was no PMS? Yeah.
Pain and PMS are hormonal imbalances. They're not phases of the cycle, and they're not normal. They're common, but they're not normal. And so you have to think, like, back in the day, women were not menstruating, and it wasn't this terrible, horrible, horrific burden. And a lot of that is our own mindset, of course, but also the foods we eat and the way that we work and the masculine pushing that we're constantly doing. But I have this theory that the cycle is our training wheels, and that as we end and go into menopause, I mean, as we transition through the perimenopausal gateways, that you've lost your training wheels. And now you're one of the wise women who knows how to live in harmony with the world, with the moon, with the cycles. And you're actually showing, and this is where I like it, I think of the wise women and the menstruating women as showing the children and the men that you don't have to physically be bleeding to do this, but this is what it looks like, and this is how it is, and that you can also live very cyclically. And women, I think, were really the ones who showed how to live in harmony with the earth, how to live in harmony with the moon, how to plant and work and live with these cycles and these harmonies, and that the period was really just it is just in a way training wheels for like forcing you to actually do it
Right.
and live it. And I think coming from that perspective of this is really a guide and it's showing me, and then you look at the science and how your period is such a good diagnostic tool. You know, if you're spotting, that's low progesterone. If you're brown blood, that's low progesterone. If you're having PMS, if you're having cramps, if you're having a lot of these things, oftentimes that's high estrogen. So you really, or you can use your period as a diagnostic tool and know if you're in balance and if you're in the rhythm and if you're in the cycles. And then also from this energetic perspective of this is a really great tool for you to live in those cycles and in harmony. So I find the moon to be so very important because that is the cycle. That is the thing that's really showing you every month, filling up and emptying, filling up and emptying, filling up and emptying. And The Women Who Run with the Wolves, the book by Dr. Clarissa Pinkton. Sorry if I just butchered her name. She has a thing. She talks about how a woman is a vase that's being filled and empty every month with the moon. And they are really so very importantly linked. And there's no right or wrong. Just because women traditionally bled with the new moon doesn't mean that that's how it has to be. But if you do find that, I think of the moon as yin and yang, and our cycles as yin and yang, and the new moon and the blood are yin, and the full moon and the ovulation are yang. And if you're going on opposite Z's, that's okay. How are you harnessing those two different powers for yourself? And if you're going together Z's, awesome. Are you really resting in this yin-yin, double yin phase? And are you really going for it on this double yang phase? And this is where I see with my entrepreneurial clients is a lot of times they'll go opposite Z's. And I truly believe that's so that we have the energy to keep moving and working through some things, albeit with respect to our bodies and our femininity, but also to be like, yeah, okay, well, I do need to do a couple of hours, but I can. And then as soon as that big project, like launching a summit, is over, I see them come back to bleeding with the new moon again and going, oh my God, I just need a week of deep, intense rest. And I see their cycles moving into that same yin moon energy to really, in a way, force you to put on the brakes. And you can look at it from that perspective, or you can look at it as the universe is allowing you to rest at this point. So, you know, sometimes it takes a little while to get the patriarchy out of your head.
The mindset, exactly.
It's like being deprogrammed after being in a cult your whole life.
Right. Yeah. So powerful. Such powerful stuff. And so when you're charting, have you found that this helps women connect more with their intuition and their own bodies?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I have some key phrases for journaling throughout your cycle that I picked because hormonally, the way that your hormones shift the way your brain works, your brain really is good at answering certain questions during certain times. So it's a cool little, it's one of those things that it's like science is catching up to what we already knew. Like we already knew that during our menstrual phase, we're so good at dreaming and coming up with amazing plans and ideas and generating all of this brilliance. And back in the day, in the red tent days, the village would wait for women to come out of the red tent with the message of what's next? What do we do next? We have a message for you. Women would come with a message out of the red tent. So we used to know that, but now we also know that during menstruation, the synapses between the right and our left hemisphere of our brain are firing the most. So of course, our logic and our creativity brains are talking to each other like crazy pants. And we also know that our gut brain, right? There's as many brain cells in our gut as in your cat.
Wow.
So it's smart.
You're full of really good facts.
Right? It's that gut instinct is legit. Like cats are instinctual beings. There's a reason witches and cats go together like peanut butter and jelly. It's that instinct and that gut brain. We've learned that gut brain actually sends data up to your brain. So during your menstrual phase, you've not only got all of this deep intuition coming up from your gut, but your brain is processing it both logically and creatively all at the same time. So why would you not spend that time journaling on your big whys? why am I
Right.
doing this? Why can this be better? You know, like, why? What are those really big questions? You know, why can this be better? What, just really big, you know, why am I doing this? Why am I on this planet even?
Yeah.
So it's great for that. And it's amazing to me how the science has really kind of caught up with that. So I love using your intuition throughout your cycle. So during your menstrual phase, journaling around why, just any sentence that you want to start with why, perfect.
I love
Uh,
it.
in your follicular phase, journaling around the word how. How do I do it? And we know that we're very good at
Oh.
problem solving during this phase. So how?
Can you explain
How?
what the follicular phase is?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a phase when, so after you're done menstruating, you've got a few hormonal shifts. One of them is the hormone that, the follicle stimulating hormone, very creatively named because it stimulates the follicle. At the end of a follicle is an egg. So during your follicular phase, very much like spring, like a sprout shooting out of the earth, you're
Mhm.
growing that egg. And then your ovulation phase is when the egg ripens and releases.
Gotcha.
And
Okay.
then the final phase is your luteal phase. And there's a little two-prongy thing in that. So
Gotcha. So
I'll do that one
follicular
next.
phase is like is the phase right after menstruation. Is it
Yeah,
approximately a week long?
approximately. Yeah. It's
Okay.
it's usually the luteal phase that expands and contracts for women based on stress and hormonal reactions and these kinds of things. Usually follicular is about 7 days. But the only one that's really set in stone is ovulation. An egg can only survive 3 to 4 days. So ovulation is 3 to 4 days, no matter who you are, where you are, whatever your hormonal balance, it doesn't matter. Your egg is only viable for 3 to 4 days, and that's it. So that's
Gotcha.
the only
Yeah.
one that there's no flexibility
Okay. Yeah.
on.
Is what it is.
It is a
Yeah.
universal truth amongst all women.
Okay.
But the follicular is very much like a 7 day phase, and it's the springtime. It's the springtime of your cycle. So it's a really good, as menstruation is the winter, which is why that hibernation and that,
Mhm.
what those big why questions like you do in winter when you're stuck inside for weeks on end.
Why?
Why? It's
Yeah.
that same, energy. And then because you're growing something soon,
Yes.
and then you're in your springtime. So how are you going to get it done? How are you going to solve that problem? How are you going to create that amazing thing? How are you going to create this amazing life? All those questions are really good during this time. And then ovulation is the doing time. Go do it. Your face is actually the most symmetrical during ovulation.
I've heard that. Like they say you're actually like objectively the most attractive during
Hmm.
those days. Yeah.
Yeah, we're hardwired to look for symmetry, and during ovulation, our faces become more symmetrical.
Is that like the body being like, make a baby right
It
now?
is. It is.
Yeah.
Your body will use every trick in the book to get you knocked up because women really only have like 6 to 7 days where we're fertile out of the
Mhm.
whole month. And so
Right.
your body is like trying to cram every trick it can into those 6 days.
Right.
But on the plus side, women in tipped positions, there's a study done, they make the most during ovulation. So, if you want to ask for a raise or you want to sell
Oh,
something, that's a great time to ask. People kind of just
right.
want to give you things at that time. Like the pheromones are very much putting off that, like, I want to give you whatever you want because you're a fertile woman kind of
So it
thing.
seems like it's really great with the creator energy and
Uh-huh.
the receiver energy in ovulation.
Yeah.
All just like all
Oh,
go.
yeah. Totally. Totally. So, I mean, if you want it, go do it. Go ask for it. Go get it, girl.
Yeah.
And then that's when you come into the luteal phase. And this is the one where it can be 7 to 14 days. This is really where you get that like expanding and contracting in the luteal phase on time. Um, and this is where either your body is, waiting for that egg to implant and it's been, theoretically it's been fertilized and implanting. And now your body is waiting to see if it's going to stay or not.
Mhm.
And if it's not fertilized, you'll get your period. And if it does, then you're knocked up. Welcome to
So
motherhood.
this is if you have hormonal imbalance, this is
Mhm.
like the PMS phase.
Right. So
Okay.
that's a really good point because the luteal phase is a phase. PMS is a hormonal imbalance, not a
Okay.
phase. And I really
Ah,
love
okay.
it's like common but not normal. I like making that distinction. PMS is common, but it's not normal.
Right.
It's a symptom, not a phase. Like
Okay.
we've come to accept it as just a part of being a woman. It's just part of the curse, but it's really not. It's really telling you that there's something not right in the body, and it's
Yeah.
fixable. It's
Right.
fixable. So instead of looking at it as this horrific, pissed off, moody, and sensitive or stressed out, as I like to say, I like to
Yeah.
think of it as planning your month strategically. So
Yeah.
setting yourself up to not have the same reactions the next month, to use that
Right.
whole month to get your hormones into balance and to improve. So
So
can look
for
at it
women
one of
who
two ways.
are struggling like with this syndrome, like
Mm-hmm.
how can like they approach, like what can their superpower be in this phase of the month, instead of it being like, this is the worst, it's so stressful.
So I think one of the biggest superpower of the luteal phase, and even when you're completely crazy and stressed out and PMSy, is that
Yeah.
you know exactly what is and isn't working in your life.
Uh-huh.
Clearly.
Yes.
So I have
Yeah.
this.
There's no question, right?
No, there's no question.
Yeah.
I have this joke, and in my program, Your Business, Your Flow, it's a membership for female entrepreneurs to run their business with their cycles. But we have this ongoing joke about the dirty sock syndrome. And it's basically problem solving through your cycle. But in PMS, in this luteal phase, when you have those PMS symptoms, you know that you want to murder your partner with a rusty dull spoon because they can't get their socks into the dirty clothes bin.
Yes.
The dirty socks will maybe land next to the hamper or maybe on top of the hamper, but never just in the freaking
Right.
hamper, right?
Yeah.
So you know clearly what the problem is, but you leave it. You don't do anything with it. You just, this is what is
Okay.
this is what it is. This is, and
You just
what is
document
working,
that. Yeah.
just what's working, what's not working, just get it out of your head and out of your heart and onto the paper, just purge. And then when you go into that menstrual phase, why is the dirty socks such a freaking problem that I want to murder the love of my life with a rusty spoon every month?
Yeah.
And that's usually when women come back with, I don't feel like an equal partner. I'm not your mom. Even if I do have laundry dirty, how disrespectful is it for you not to just be able to get it into the hamper? Like it's the common respect, and then you get into a lot of that concepts of the emotional burden of women and households and all of that. So it's really going into that why. Well, because I'm not your mom. I'm your partner, and that's usually where it comes back to. And then the how phase is when you go, okay, well, how am I going to talk to my partner? Is it going to be over a beer at the pub or on a hike or after a class or after a workout class or whatever? Like, how am I going to talk so that they can hear me the best? Not when I feel necessarily the most comfortable, but when can they hear me the best? And then set it up and do it during ovulation.
Okay.
Right? So then set it up like, okay, we're going to go have a hike. And then after the hike, we'll stop at our favorite pub afterwards. And then I'll have this conversation with him or her about this being a problem in our relationship. And this is why. And then they can actually hopefully hear you better in that time, because
I love that you just like took it full circle. Like you took it through every phase. And that was a beautiful example of like, because things like that happen all the time.
Yeah.
And this is like a strategic, biologically supported way of handling your emotions. So it's not just like, random firing. Like it's
right.
Yeah.
It's just screaming when you're completely crazy is not going to work out for anybody.
Something tells me you're right. Yeah.
It turns out that no one really hears at that high-pitched volume.
Yes.
And nobody really understands either when it's just word salad crazy.
Exactly.
Which I am guilty of. So don't no judgment here.
Right.
Been there, done that many a time.
Yeah. And so red tent is something that's coming up big time in our culture. I think women are having this longing to gather and be together and like really reclaim like we bleed and it's awesome, and it doesn't have to be this like thing that we avoid like crazy. So why is community so important to implement this knowledge?
Yeah, it's unbelievable. So I have these 4 gateways that you need to really embrace your whole feminine cycle, and charting is one, as we've established.
Yeah.
Number 2 is actually sisterhood support. And that red tent community or moon lodges or moon huts or wherever it is, wherever you are, whatever the language it is. It's a safe place for women to talk about how kick-ass it is to be able to bleed for 5 days and not die, and how that just makes us rad.
Yeah.
Um, but also that space where we can use positive language around women and our bodies and what they can do. And it's hard to do that in the world where most women start every sentence with, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
When you can actually be in a space where you can talk about the taboos that you face as a woman. You know, in my circles, the things like being a stepmom or having a 2-week long bleed, or these things that just, or being single and having more than one partner. Like
Mm-hmm.
these are things that come up constantly over and over and over again in my own circles that I host. And it's a safe place for women to just get it out, and then for the whole community to come around and go, all right, let's make this a positive. How can we look at this positively? And you can get used to using period, powerful, positive language. And then you can go out into the world, hopefully sprinkle a little of that positive language out there. And if you get smacked down, you have a place to come back to lick your wounds, to go out and do it again because you're not giving up. Or if it works, to come back and go, oh my God, it worked. I got somebody who's also thinking the same thing now. And she's seeing that blue liquid on a pad is just stupid.
Yeah.
Amazing. And discreet packaging is bullshit. And
Yeah.
we're buying menstrual cups and cloth pads, and power to the women again.
Yes.
You can celebrate and have those moments of victory, really. So you can come, it's a safe space and safe community. And the other really big thing I truly believe is that we are part of that break from women was tearing apart the circles, right? So if you were friends with another woman, you were both witches, and therefore your life was ending. So it really did effectively pull women apart. And to fill that gap, we saw women no longer as our community, but now as our competition. Because something has to happen. We sort in our brains. We're organizers. We need labels for things. So when those circles were being busted up, it started to turn so that, and it was very smart on the church's side. I mean, whatever, but it was smart of them, because women started to have to see other women as the enemy, because that woman could name me and I could be next. Or or even in self-preservation mode, coming at it from a positive side, was I can't talk to any other woman, because if I do, they might get taken away next.
Right.
So it was very effective in forcing and pulling us apart and turned us into competitive women. And this idea that, there's only so many CEO positions out there. So, you have to play the man's game and you have to stomp on everybody on the way up is crap, because just make another business.
Right.
And there we go to that community thing again, where when women are supporting other women and we're buying from other women and we're working with other women and we're suggesting other women, we're shouting out the amazing awesomeness of other women, we all make more money, and it stays in our own cycles, and we're actually literally funding a woman and her family.
Yeah.
And helping each other grow and succeed and create another CEO.
Right.
And then another CEO.
Right.
And I think it would be way more rad if there were hundreds of millions of female CEOs making 6 figures a year than one that took over a Fortune 500 company somewhere and making $6 billion a year. Like, how much cooler would it be if we could all just help each other out and really support each other and work and buy and love and laugh with each other? And then we could all, this is where income equality can come from. Women,
yeah, absolutely.
And it's not about gathering all of the nuts so that no one else can have any. It's spreading that love and spreading that joy. And it's true for money as much as it is for love. It's all energy. So it doesn't really matter what the tactile version of it is. It's all energy. So there's no finite amount. We just make more.
Absolutely. Abundance breeds abundance. So,
yeah.
And the more we support each other, the more it's just going to grow. So,
Exactly.
So, Stasha, I pulled a goddess card for you, and who came up was Ostara, and she's a goddess of fertility. And it says, it is a perfect time for you to start new projects access new ideas and give birth to new conditions. And she's so beautiful, and she has the moon and her Easter basket there. So does that bring anything up for you to share with everyone?
Well, first of all, on a personal level, I just opened the doors to my membership this week, so that's
Ooh,
good.
awesome. Yeah, new projects, like new fertility. Yes.
Yay! So hopefully that will be very fertile grounds for lots and lots of women to really change and shift and learn and support each other. So I'm really hoping that'll be really very fertile ground, not just for me, but for all of the women involved.
Yeah.
I also love that it's just in time for Easter, because the church took her over and renamed it Easter. So it's same goddess, different name.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, it's really pretty much the same name. It's just the evolution of the English language changed that O to an E over the course of it. Word nerd.
Yeah. I love that.
Loved my old English class in college. But yeah, I love the fact that we're starting to recognize a lot of these rites like Easter as what they were once upon a time as being fertility. And that's that springtime. It's that follicular, the sprouts are shooting up from the earth, and it's a good time for sowing the seeds and eating the sprouts and detoxing and stretching after the long winter. And oh, that feels good. I like it. Yeah.
And I love how your work with the period is also related to the seasons, and it's just more of an overall like cyclical feminine way of being, like embracing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It all comes around. So even in the dark of winter, spring is on the way. And just like at the peak of summer, winter's on the way. So, and there's no good or bad. There's just what comes next.
Yeah. Well, I'm so happy that we've had this conversation, and I know that the audience is going to want to keep in touch with you, and we have your link to your awesome free gift, and I'm going to get started on that mandala, so I'm excited about that. So thank you so much, Stasha.
Thank you.
Awesome. So to all our listeners, tune in next time. Bye-bye. Hearts.